think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hey folks, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us today. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality where we are building a liberty machine. We need all of you out there listening in order to do that. Yeah, I'm telling you, I was a little under the weather on Friday. My goodness. Joe, I got to tell you this. When it comes to the temperature swings here in the state of Arkansas, I think I've about had it. Like in terms of it being 60, 70 degrees one week, and then immediately, then it's 30. Well, what's the temperature right now? It's like close to 20 degrees or something like that. 19 degrees. I'm just to the point where I can't really even handle it. So that's kind of where I am right now. My allergies have really just kind of given up on this whole process. So let me see here. What else do we have? Oh yeah, first of all, we got a great show for you. We are going to be talking with economist, professor from Stockton University out of New Jersey, Dr. Michael Busler, will be on the program coming up at 6:30, and then 7:33 we'll be talking with State Representative Jack Ladyman, who I understand is already in the Little Rock area. So we'll be doing that. Very excited. The phone number again, 870-275-9799. Let's see here. What do we have? There's something going on with my headphones, Joe. Not entirely sure what it is, but we'll figure that out. I'm not really sure what's going on. All right, so we have a lot of news to get to. We have the fact in our coverage of the 92nd General Assembly, we're going to be having a vote today on the governor's highway plan. I think both portions of that highway plan is what we're going to be voting on. The House of Representatives will be voting on, and this is a two-part plan. One's going to raise your taxes at the wholesale level for gas and diesel. The other's going to refer to the people, whether or not you want to keep a sales tax that's supposed to expire, that was set to expire. We'll go over more of this coming up at 7:05. Then, of course, you have President Donald Trump and CPAC over the weekend. President Trump and CPAC over the weekend. That was quite the speech, the 2-hour speech. Did anyone even think that was something that was going to happen? A 2-hour speech off the cuff, off teleprompter. He even did a little bit of he dropped the four-letter word there. He said that the investigations are BS, collusion, delusion. He said. President Trump delighted conservative political action conference activists with another off-script speech on Saturday criticizing the ongoing investigations of his businesses, his campaign, and his presidency. After beginning his speech, reading off of teleprompters, he soon pivoted to other topics in a speech that lasted over an hour. Quote, I'm totally off script right now, and this is how I got elected, by being off script. And we don't go off script. And if we don't go off script, our country is in big trouble, folks. Yeah, I certainly think that's kind of that's a statement that's true in more ways than one, isn't it? Because it does seem that we have been moving, on this track for so long, regardless of which party was in control, just moving in the same direction, regardless of whatever party's in control or not. So that's always pretty frustrating. It's been frustrating for a lot of people who are, consider themselves conservatives, consider themselves like, I'm voting for Republican because I'm really upset with the direction of the country, the big government that's going on, everything else. And, but nothing ever seems to change. And that's, and so then it kind of comes up to this idea of, well, then why am I, this is what makes people jaded. This is why people have given up on voting. But they didn't give up. I mean, there's new voters that came out to vote for Donald Trump. I mean, in droves, people who had never even participated in the electoral process, because there was something about him that made folks want to get involved. That wanted to say, well, okay, this guy will actually go up there and be an agent of change. Now, whether or not you like it or not, or whether you think it's destructive, which I don't, but you know what I mean. It was somebody that's going to throw in a catalyst, if you will, to try to shake things up, and that certainly is happening. There's no doubt about that. I mean, from any objective measure, I don't think anyone's ever seen this much opposition, coordinated opposition. I think eventually, you remember when we had Devin Nunes on the show? This was back when the Republicans had the House, and Congressman Devin Nunes was saying that he believes that Donald Trump will declassify these FISA documents that are going to essentially expose what the other side was doing, meaning the actual collusion that was taking place between Russia and who knows how deep this is all going to go when it's all said and done. And I think that we're getting closer to that point. That was last year, and Congressman Nunes was in Arkansas, and I, got to speak with him. And, they were talking about potentially releasing some of this evidence last year. Matter of fact, it was when those hurricanes were coming in, or one of those hurricanes. It was the one that hit South Carolina, I think. Anyway, it's crazy how time flies, but there still hasn't been any sort of declassification of what actually went on right before or during the 2016 elections and right after the 2016 elections. We still don't have those documents of what the Obama government was doing. We've seen resignations. We've seen, a lot of people go at the FBI, and who else knows what's going on behind the scenes. But to me, and I've heard a lot of people say that this whole investigation into the president has been an effort to, well, we've talked about it before, project and deflect. Now, most of the time at Conduit, when we talk about projection and deflection, it's one of our 7 or 8 ways that you can grow government with projection and deflection. I mean, you're going to project the very things you're guilty on someone else in an effort to deflect you getting the pushback. And normally that's a way that you can grow government when you're debating the legislative process, when you're debating the idea of what to do. We probably are going to see some of that at a later date. We'll probably see some of that. We'll probably talk about some of that coming up here at 7:05 on the program today when it comes to how we're going to fund our roads in the highway plan. But that's just a way to grow government, not necessarily a way to a spy on an opposing campaign. Certainly it's something that you can do when you are guilty of something that you don't want other people to know. You'll accuse them of the very thing that you are in fact guilty of. As frustrating as it can be, it really is. Let's see here. I'll tell you what. We're going to be talking a little bit at the bottom of this hour. We're going to be talking a little bit about the Green New Deal, as well as the economy with Dr. Michael Busler. The solution to the climate change, if you will, which I'm telling you, I really feel like I've missed the boat on this. I feel like we here on the right, we're doing a really good job debunking all of this man-made climate nonsense, or certainly the notion that we're going to be able to stop it if it is in fact real. By pointing out the scientists and their funding and how they're getting paid to find bad results. And if they don't find the bad results, that it's man's problem, that we're a parasite on the planet, then they're not going to get their grants renewed. You think you're doing it, but there's a whole generation of young people that have bought into the Al Gore, Linda Ellerbee scam. And that's how it all started. And it started indoctrinating kids. They tried to indoctrinate my generation, the people who watched Nickelodeon and that sort of thing. And it really didn't work with me. But, man, the people right behind me, I mean, they believe that the world's going to end in 12 years. And they haven't lived long enough. They don't understand that they've made these dire predictions for a very long time. And, the 10 years is up and we're still here and the sea levels are still the same. Virtually everything's unchanged. And you still have volcanoes underwater who are spewing massive amounts of, pollution, way more than what we spew in a year, and massive. Anyway, you think that we've beaten this thing, but all of a sudden, no. There's so many people, they really think climate change is the greatest threat. They really, truly do. So the solution to climate change, if you're a leftist, is always socialism. And socialism cannot exist. I saw this the other day on Judge Jeanine. Socialism can't even exist without capitalism there to first fund it. You got to have money from somewhere, right? Judge Jeanine, Dennis Prager from Prager University. He makes great videos. He is extraordinary. His mind is extraordinary. Dennis Prager was on Judge Jeanine, and he was actually saying this. This really caught my attention, and I wanted to share it with you about socialism just in general. And I'd like to see us try to apply this really at all levels of government, not just nationally, but right here in Arkansas. Listen to this.
Though not in moral significance, but in significance it is an economic failure. And there's a very simple reason. That's key, only capitalism creates wealth. No other economic way of life, system, philosophy has ever created wealth. Socialism spends the money that capitalism creates. No one can deny that. Even leftists can't deny that. They will say it's the moral thing to do then to spend what capitalism creates because there's inequality and all the things that they object to. But they cannot deny that it itself makes no money. So it depends on capitalism to even exist.
So that when Margaret Thatcher said socialism is great until you run out of other people's
That's correct.
money,
That's
she
it.
was on the same page as you.
Totally. Well, Margaret Thatcher.
It was fabulous.
Was Ms. Clarity.
Yes.
No, that's exactly right. Secondly, it always deprives people of freedom because it makes the government bigger and bigger. And as the government gets bigger, in every instance, there is no exception, people's rights diminish. America was founded, and it's the only country founded on limited government.
Okay, let me ask you this. Every candidate running for president on the Democrat side believes in socialism. The wild part about this is when Bernie Sanders ran 3 years ago, when he said he was a Democrat socialist, I think everybody kind of went, whoosh.
By leftism. It's been kidnapped. If you would have asked a liberal 50 years ago, are you pro-socialist? He would have said, what, are you crazy?
Yeah.
That's crazy. The biggest anti-communists were the labor unions in the 1930s and 40s and 50s. But liberals have wimped out the battle against the left. Alan Dershowitz is a rare example of a living liberal who was anti-left.
Okay. All right. I gotta do this now. Now, you are making a movie, No Safe Spaces, with, of all people, Adam Carolla. Why?
Adam Carolla and I are the closest human beings with disparate backgrounds that exists in America.
All right. Should we show this?
Yes, I think.
All right,
go
ahead.
Let's
Stop.
show this shot that we have.
Okay, yeah.
All right, stop right there. Okay, so that was Dennis Prager, talking about socialism, and this obviously. So I think we had a mic that's just blown out or something because this obviously is sounding normal. But sorry, we had some problems there with our microphone. This is what I wanted to talk about. I guess you could say the same thing that I just said about climate change, right? You could say the same thing about this. You think, well, of course we've beaten back the ills of socialism. Of course we have, right? No. There's a whole generation. Bernie Sanders is back. Having these rallies, and Bernie Sanders is talking about socialism And there are all these people that really believe that we should throw all of our money into one big pile and then divide it up equally. And it's really terrifying when you think about it. It's absolutely terrifying. And then you have these people that are going to say, well, we're already a socialist country. Like, we're a socialist country right now. You know, that's what a lot of people say, because they say, well, we have Social Security. See, they think that they think if you have a safety net, that means you're that you're a socialist country. And while I'm sure you can make that argument all day long, just because you have a big welfare program, it's all about, are you a market-based economy? And what they don't understand is Bernie Sanders is promising Medicaid for all. Bernie Sanders is promising all this stuff. But in order to deliver it, you're going to have to take control of people's freedoms. You heard Dennis Prager say it: as government grows, your freedoms are going to shrink. That is true at the federal level, and it's true here at the state level. And the House of Representatives is about to vote to raise your taxes on gasoline at the wholesale and diesel level. If you don't like it, then at some point today, before this afternoon session, you need to call Little Rock and tell them. And you need to give your state representatives a message and say, this we can't stand for this, you know. Anyway, it's really frustrating when you think about it, you know. And there's probably people that listen to that and think, yeah, federally, nationally, that's true. If government grows, our liberty shrinks. Well, if it's true federally, how is it? Is it also true here at the state level? And do we see that being lived out in the votes of our state representatives and state senators? Sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. There is, human beings themselves are inconsistent, but boy, when it comes to running for office, you would really want your politician to be more consistent than the average person when it comes to voting their principles and applying those principles equally with every issue. We're going to take a break here, folks. You're listening to Conduit News, and we will be back here in just a moment. Coming up at 6:33, going to be talking with Dr. Michael Busler. Don't go anywhere.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
We are going to get right to it. We got Tim Loggins on the line with the Patriots Vex 746. Tim, how you doing this morning?
Good morning, Paul. How are you?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. I'm telling you, Tim, I was just so encouraged with what happened last week with the Arkansas Liberty Coalition bringing in Chris Ann Hall to tour, to talk about the Constitution. And it really kind of led up to the weekend where she was in Jonesboro 2 nights, then she was in Hot Springs for 2 days. Talk a little bit about how you think the events went.
Well, Paul, think about this. We had 55 or more people there Thursday for her class on state sovereignty. Had 2 or 3 elected officials there, Dan Sullivan, Grant Smith, I'm not sure who else. Friday, we had
Who's next to Zipline?
Me, and I'm really excited about this.
Sir, I'm sorry. The Zipline has a 350-pound weight limit, and frankly, I do not think it would be safe for you.
Oh, that's okay. I self-identify as 180 pounds, so it's cool.
Sir, that doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm afraid we can't let you ride the Zipline. You're too heavy. I'm sorry.
I can't believe this. I thought we had evolved as a society. I thought this was America, but I guess this is just my plight. First slavery, and now fat-shaming.
Sir, again, I'm really sorry.
You listen to me. If you don't let me ride, not only will I sue this company for discrimination, I will sue you for damages because right now my feelings are so hurt and I feel embarrassed because I'm holding up the line.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Watch it, mister.
Look, okay, I'm sorry. I just don't think it would be safe for you.
You don't understand. I self-identify as skinny. So you have to let me ride the zip line. The Constitution says so. I get to define my own reality.
Okay, fine. Whatever. Ride the zip line. Mike, let this man ride the zip line.
Thank you. Now watch as my self-identity trumps your bigotry. See you on the other side, racist. Here I go! Doctor, thank goodness. What's the prognosis?
Sir, we've done everything we can, and you only have seconds to live.
No, you cannot say that. I do not self-identify as a dead person.
PHP parody.
Yes.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
All right, 870-275-9799. Woo! My goodness. Telephone number if you want to call or text us today, 870-275-9799. Just a few more quotes here. Let's see here. In the CPAC speech, President Trump made it clear who he blamed by mocking the Southern accent of his former Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who recused himself from the investigation. Quote, Robert Mueller never received a vote, and neither did the person that appointed him, Trump said, referring to the unelected bureaucrats investigating him. Trump praised conservative Representative Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows for defending him against the ongoing attacks. He expressed frustration with the Democrats in Congress that were attacking him, including Representative Adam Schiff, whom he referenced as Little Shifty Schiff. I want to be very careful there how I say that. He's tweeted before misspellings of that name. Quote, these people are sick, Trump said. He warned that Democrats were already shifting the investigation to his personal and business deals. Where did that come from, Trump asked. He always talked about Russia, the collusion delusion. Trump recalled how the fake news took his jokes out of context, reminding the crowd of when he mockingly asked WikiLeaks to find Hillary Clinton emails. This is true, and so much of his campaign was jokes, was tongue-in-cheek, and everybody thought it was hilarious. These are, going around to all these rallies where people were saying, lock her up, lock her up, lock her up, and he's like, oh, by the way, Russia, please. Because see here, this is what, isn't that not incredible that the media is harping on the fact that Donald Trump said, Russia, if you're listening, can you get her emails? There were, the context. Remember the context of why he said that. Because she illegally deleted 30,000 of her emails because she didn't want people to see what was going on. We now know she had classified material on the server. We also know, according to reports at least, that foreign governments had access to this little server that she had in a closet somewhere. And some people believe that the server, that whole setup was done intentionally to supply the Chinese with information. That's what some people believe out there. That was what was really going on. And by the way, that is not, if you know the Clintons, that's not out of the realm of possibility when you consider the relationship the Clintons had with the Chinese when it came to technology transfers back when Bill Clinton was the president of the United States. He goes on here. Trump recalled how the fake news took his jokes out of context. Let's see. He also mocked Clinton's former campaign manager, John Podesta, as still not over getting his rear end kicked. Trump explained to the crowd that it was easy to give extended speeches in rooms full of love and appreciation for what they had done. We're all in love together, he said. The crowd chanted, 4 more years, 4 more years. Anyway, it's pretty interesting. You would have thought that speech, honestly, would have been an election year type speech. Check it out if you haven't listened to the whole thing. It is certainly entertaining.
86 or 88 folks attend. We had 3 or 4 legislators there. Johnny Rive, attended his first meeting with us. We had the Craighead County judge and justices of the peace. And, man, it's an exciting time in Arkansas right now to see this grassroots involvement that, yesterday, Paul, we added like 65 people that requested to join the Northeast Arkansas chapter of Patriots Back 746. I mean, times are exciting. We're seeing some good things, and man, I can hardly contain myself.
Wow. Well, it certainly was, certainly was interesting and very encouraging as well. I mean, I would definitely say that it was encouraging. I would agree with you there. Exciting. So I got to attend the Northeast Arkansas chapter meeting on Friday night. It started at 5. And, man, you could just kind of feel it in the air. And people are excited. They were very appreciative of State Representative Brant Smith running that resolution to clarify gun rights here in Arkansas.
Absolutely, and by the way, that was filed in the Senate yesterday by Senator Scott Flippo, so it should run next week in committee on the Senate side next week. So, we're pretty excited about this.
Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I had been hearing that Senator Flippo was going to be the one to file it, and so I'm glad that he's filed it. And so, really, what we may have here is a situation where the Senate passes a resolution saying we're constitutional carry state, and the House passes a resolution, and both of them do it. It's just going to be great. Really, really good stuff. Can we just talk a little bit more about Chris Ann Hall? There was, Tim, you and I, we're students of history and the Constitution, but Chris Ann Hall can take you to school, can't she?
I felt like a first grader when that first night on Thursday when she was teaching about state sovereignty. Paul, we have the mechanism in place. All we got to do is read our history. All we got to do is read our founding documents and our founding fathers, read the Constitution. We have an out-of-control federal government, and the federal government is not going to fix that. It doesn't matter who you elect to office. The federal government's not going to rein itself in. Our state legislatures, they can do that. That's the role of the state legislature. And we can fix these problems, and we can start at the local level, at the state level, and we can take our country back. And that's what Chris Ann was teaching. Not just that we can do that, but she gave the quotes. She gave the documents. Go reference to yourself. And man, I felt like a first grader.
Yeah. She was very clear that this was not her opinion. That it's all based in the fact of what the founders said. And I have gotten away from that so much. In terms of, if you actually go read what they said, they were crystal clear with the intent.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right. Welcome back to the program. It's Monday. Thanks for starting the beginning of your week with us here at the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. We've been going over really just a lot of the tendencies of the left at this point. They are obsessed with socialism, and they are obsessed with the Green New Deal, as they call it. Of course, the cure to climate change is socialism. Those are their ideas. Even President Trump at CPAC, one of the things he said about wind energy, he made fun of it in terms of saying, like, honey, is the wind blowing today? I'd like to watch television. I thought that was pretty funny. We have this headline here. The Green New Deal is estimated to cost $93 trillion. Here to talk a little bit about that. What would that do to the economy? We have economist Dr. Michael Busler is on the line. He's a professor at Stockton University. Dr. Busler, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, and thank you for having me. It's always my pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're always very excited to have you on. Did you catch that headline at all last week? $93 trillion if Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez gets what she wants.
Yeah, I did see that. I'm not sure that may even be a little bit low when you consider everything that she wants to do. Look, when you get down to the basics, climate is changing. There's no doubt about that. Climate has been changing for thousands of years. There are places where you have deserts now, used to have fertile ground, and vice versa. So the climate is always changing. The left says the climate change is being accelerated by human activity. While they claim that's a fact, most of the scientific community is not quite sure that's the case. And to upend your entire economy for something that may not be effective is really not a very good idea. You know, I'm old enough to remember back in the early 1970s, the scientists were saying in 50 years we're likely to have an ice age. Now they've changed that, and we're having a global warming issue. So things like this operate cyclically, and before we go about destroying an entire economy, we ought to think a little bit harder about this. What they want to do, essentially, is take over the healthcare industry, which accounts for about 17% of all economic activity, take over the energy industry, and really they're proposing taking over much of the of education by offering free college tuition for at least 2 years to every American. Now, all of those programs would bankrupt the country, and they're really counter to what made this country great. You know, when you take a look at it, the U.S. went from the birth of a nation in the late 1700s to the number one most prosperous economy in the world in about 150 years. There were other nations that are hundreds of years older, some thousands of years older, yet we were able to do that in a short period of time and maintain it. The reason was, in my opinion, there were four basic values we had. We valued individual freedom and freedom in markets. Mm-hmm. We valued individual responsibility, where people were primarily responsible for their own welfare. We had a system that had very low rates of taxation, and indeed we founded this country because we were overtaxed in the first place. And fourthly, we had a very limited role for government. With that, people were free to pursue their dreams. They were free to keep most of the income that they earned, and the country prospered. Everything this Green New Deal wants to do is exactly opposite to that. It would take away individual freedoms. The government would control key industries. Once they control the healthcare and education, they would mandate who gets what. They'd lose individual freedom. The government would take care of people, so you'd lose individual responsibility. To pay for this, you're going to have massive tax increases, not just on the wealthy, but mostly on the middle class. So we have high taxes rather than low. And now you have the government involved in major industries, so it's a big role for government rather than a small role. So it's everything that's against the values that made this country great.
Let me ask you this. We're talking with Dr. Michael Busler. So this is a big Democrat leftist idea. I wonder if you think that do Republicans have any I don't know, do they have any difficulty convincing some on you know, what a bad deal this is? I guess that's what the reason is because historically, you know, Republicans, they do say that they are against those things that you just mentioned about, you know, higher taxes and the loss of individual liberty and things like that. But over time, you know, the Republicans have supported some of those things.
Yes, they have. And really the country started to lean into more social responsibility right around the turn of the century. In early 1900s, 1913, we put the federal income tax in, and that kept going. The rates kept going up. We put the Social Security in 1936, and that increased taxes and took more social responsibility. Then we had the Medicare in the mid-'60s, which also added to taxes and more social responsibility. The mood of the country was that we should, because we are so prosperous, we should have more of a social responsibility. And I think the Republicans, even though philosophically they may have been against it, I think they just sort of went along with it because that seemed to be what the majority of the people want.
Yeah.
You bring up a very good point, though. If we're trying to convince people that socialism is not right, we have to make a good argument. Part of the reason it's so popular now, especially with younger people, is the economy has been stagnant for decades. Prior to 2018, we just missed 3% growth, but prior to 2018, the last year we had 3% annual growth was 2005. The last period we had, last time we had 4% annual growth was the year 2000. That's the longest period of economic stagnation, in my opinion, in U.S. history. The result of that was that college graduates couldn't find jobs that suited their qualifications, so they took jobs where you didn't really need a college degree, and now they're very upset at that. Because they took those jobs, people without college degrees didn't have any opportunity. They dropped out of the workforce, became discouraged workers. There's still about 5 or 6 million of those. They're pretty unhappy too. So when you talk to these people that are unhappy about what's happening, and you mention socialistic programs, that tends to be very appealing to them.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I think President Trump is fixing this by growing the economy and giving people opportunity. The idea of socialism will not be as appealing.
You know, that is a great point, Dr. Busler, about, you don't really think about basically a generation of people that have not had a good economy to, pursue their dreams and accomplish what they want to accomplish. And so when you read in the Green New Deal, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she had a botched rollout of the whole thing, and she released a document that actually had on, and then they went back and edited it, but they wanted to promise economic security for those even unwilling to work. Now, if you're stuck at a dead-end job somewhere, maybe socialism sounds good, because people are going to think about themselves first.
That's exactly right. And, you bring up a great point. There's a whole generation here that has never felt American prosperity. You need the economy to grow at least at a 4% annual rate. That'll give opportunity for everybody. With all that growth, we're producing more. The standard of living goes up, and you feel prosperous. This generation has never felt prosperity. And as a result of that, having the government give me things that I don't have the opportunity to get for myself looks very appealing. And I say to my college students, I teach in a university that was started as a liberal arts college, so it's still very liberal oriented. But I tell them, look, while you tend to favor these things today, once you get out there and start working and earning a good income, you're going to realize to pay for all those things you wanted, it's coming out of your paycheck.
Yes. And
you're going to realize that you're working, and you're losing a third or more of your income to pay for all these programs. But when I was in college, I went through the same thing. Look, I was back in the days of hippies, back in the late 60s and early 70s, and we favored government helping everybody. And then we got into the workforce, and we said, hey, look, all these things, we're finally making a good income, but I don't seem to be living a high standard of living, and I turn around and look at my paycheck, and the reason is I'm paying all these taxes. Yep. Federal income tax, state income tax, sales taxes, property taxes, etc. So I say to my students, once you get out there, you may have a different view.
Can we talk real quick about the economy? The numbers came out, I think it was on Friday. It misses 3%. It comes in at 2.9%. Was that surprising to you? Because I know we had talked before, Dr. Busler, and we both of us were very optimistic about the types of GDP growth we could see.
Yeah. I'll tell you, things were going along real well until the month of December. And then, for some reason, everybody just sort of panicked. They started saying a recession is coming. The stock market was collapsing. And I said at the time, there really is no reason for stock prices to be falling. As a result of that, people got very nervous. The personal income was good in December, but retail sales and consumption were down, mostly because people got nervous and started saving their money. The personal savings rate, which is usually a little under 5%, for the month of December was up over 7.5%, up to 7.5%. So people got real nervous. The month of December tanked, and as a result of that, we're just going to miss it. Now, there is a revision coming out at the end of March, and they may revise it upward. slightly, but we were on course for 3% until December hit. I think this year we're on course for a little over 3%. So I expect the economy to do a little better this year than it did last year.
Interesting. Well, the president certainly has everybody on the left and, some never Trumpers. I mean, they certainly don't want the economy to do well at all, just because they don't like the man personally. That's what's so frustrating with me is we have liberals that want the economy to do bad. They want their fellow countrymen to do worse, just because they have a personal disagreement with the president of the United States, and that's very, very sad.
I think it's terrible. The priorities are supposed to be what's good for the country first, and then you consider what is good for your party. The Democrats have it backwards. They want to do what's good for their party, and then whatever happens to the country is after that. They were elected to lead and move things forward. They're spending all of their time investigating things, and clearly the Mueller report will be out any day now, I think, and we'll see what Bill Barr releases, probably all or most of it. But I believe it's going to show that there was no collusion with the Trump campaign. There was no obstruction of justice, and it's time to just drop this thing. Now you got this Jerry Nadler saying, well, based on what Cohen said in front of Congress the other day, there's 60 more people in the Trump organization that I want to interview. Now, I'll tell you, if you start interviewing all these, you're going to find some place where someone forgot to dot an I or cross a T, and the mainstream media is going to make a big thing out of this. It's detracting from the president doing his job. Look, in spite of every Democrat being against Trump, and in spite of 90% of the media coverage negative about Trump, and in spite of the fact some members of his own party don't even go along with him, in spite of all that, he's been able to accomplish some tremendous things. Imagine if people worked with him, how much more we could get done, and that's what frustrates me.
That's a really good point. And you mentioned Nadler. I mean, I was listening to a clip of him this morning coming into work, and he was saying that in order to impeach a president, you have to first go to the American people and convince them that he needs to be impeached. And I thought, well, that's not what you have to do to impeach somebody at all. You got to find an actual crime. It's not a popularity contest. We have to find a crime that was committed. I mean, it's just nuts. It's all politics. That's all it is. If it comes down to having to convince the people it needs to be done, then to me it's politics at that point. So
that's absolutely right. Look, the fact is the Democrats still haven't gotten over the fact that they lost in 2016. And from the first day, literally, that President Trump took office, you had Maxine Waters running around screaming, impeach 45, impeach 45. He didn't even get into office to do anything yet, and you're ready to impeach. I think the Democrats' behavior is disgusting and really despicable.
Yeah.
You should really, whether you like the president or not, he is the president. You have to support the president and do what's right for the country. He's over there trying to negotiate for the first time. North Korea says that we will get rid of the nuclear weapons. For the first time, they're negotiating that, and the Democrats put on a display that just weakens the president.
Exactly.
They have to put the country forward rather than their party.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people that think that the North Koreans were bold enough that they were told by the Chinese, hey, listen, the Trump administration needs a win right now because he's being destroyed back home. And I don't think that's crazy talk. I think that easily could have been what the North Koreans were thinking. And so, I mean, of course, it's all speculation, but you never know. And Dr. Bustler, I really appreciate you having you on. It's always great to talk to you, sir.
Thank you, Paul. It's always my pleasure.
All righty. Dr. Michael Bustler, everybody. He is a professor at Stockton University, as well a professor of finance there, and obviously he's an economics expert, and we're always thrilled to have him on. Well, the one other thing that he mentioned, when it comes to the Democrats haven't gotten over it, and that Maxine Waters was going around saying impeach, impeach, impeach. And this was before she was telling people to start to form a crowd and confront members of the Trump cabinet in public. This was before that. When all that was going on, Rod Rosenstein
and Andrew McCabe of the FBI were talking about using the 25th Amendment. We're trying to recruit members of Trump's cabinet to turn on him, to invoke the 25th Amendment. And Rod Rosenstein talked about wearing a wire into the White House. That, ladies and gentlemen, well, isn't that sedition? Isn't that what that would be? And that gets virtually no press at all, by the way, because Andrew McCabe is so compromised. He knows. I think Andrew McCabe is in a lot of trouble, and he's in so much trouble that he didn't know what to do but write a book about it. Meaning, well, if I write a book about it, clearly I think you put forth this idea. Well, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm writing a book about it. You really think that if I were guilty, would write a book and tell you all the illegal things that I've done, to tell you about the coup? It's like the Bugs Bunny and with the two crooks. He's not in that stove. Oh, really? Is he in the stove? I think he's in the stove. Would I turn this gas on if he was in the stove? Well, you might, Rabbit. You might. Would I throw this lit match in there if he was? Well, yeah, you're right. That's essentially what Andrew McCabe is doing with this little book tour, right? He's trying to convince you that there's no way he did anything wrong because he wrote a book about all the stuff that he did wrong. Anyway, we're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere. This is Conduit News. We got a great show for you coming up at 7:33. We'll be talking with State Representative Jack Ladyman. He is the chair of the Public Health Committee, and they are right now in the middle of Scope of Practice weeks. It's now the third week of Scope of Practice. Also going to talk highways, going to talk taxes. Hey, if all that stuff is true about socialism, if all that stuff is true nationally, if socialism is the thing, if government expands, your liberty contracts, if government grows, your freedom shrinks, if all that is true, is it also not true at the local level? Is it also not true at the Capitol in Little Rock? Those same ideas apply. The House of Representatives today is about to vote to raise your taxes, to create a brand new tax on something that is already taxed. Let's be clear here. They were about to vote to raise your taxes on something that is already taxed. And I know that that's frustrating, and I know there's a lot of reasons why. I know the roads are in awful shape. I get all that, or at least I hear your arguments. But there's been no conversation about cutting spending. None. That I can tell. Nothing public, right? And you've got State Representative Julie Mayberry with an actual solution to try to do this without raising your taxes at the wholesale level. Think about that for a second. They want to create a new tax of gas and diesel at the wholesale level, but you're already paying a gas tax at the pump. Now, some people have asked, well, Paul, why are they creating this new tax at the wholesale level? Why not just raise the current gas tax that we already pay? Well, if they were to do that, it would require 75% of each chamber, because the Arkansas Constitution says that if you want to raise an existing tax, you need 3/4 majority vote. But if you create a new tax, you only need 51%. You see what's being done here? The spirit of the Constitution is actually being usurped, the spirit of the Arkansas Constitution, because we're already paying the tax on this product, but they're going to tax it. I don't know, man. Some people, you never know. I think that might be a good. I'm no attorney, but you could sue based on those grounds, I think. Especially when they are saying that the wholesale tax will only result in 3 to 6 more cents at the pump. Well, it's pretty interesting. We're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. Are you a conservative-minded young person? and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Nature of the states with the relationship to the federal government that was created by the states. And of course, you know, the courts and the government growth, we're so far beyond that. I mean, we're not even, we don't look anything like we used to in that context. So there is a lot of work to do, but it, you know, I really admire Chris Ann for going around and teaching folks these basic principles because they're just not taught anymore.
No, they're not taught, Paul, and I'd say that's intentional. You know, folks that are ignorant, which I'm one of them, if we don't even know our rights, how in the world can we exercise them? If we don't know the mechanisms to control our government, how can we control it? You know, we think that the Supreme Court is the final judge of constitutionality, and that is so false. And, you know, the Supreme Court decides on one case. Ultimately, it's the states and the people that decides what's constitutional and what isn't. And you know, Chris Ann is teaching the lesson that
determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Interesting. I was reading just a friend of mine on Facebook who's been following the attempt to fund our highways, and he raises an interesting point. Financially, it's a speculation, but it's one that I've made for a couple of years now. Financially, this state may be in trouble. Anybody think that the state's in trouble financially? I mean, maybe that's why they're about to vote to raise your taxes on gas and diesel, because they don't want to admit, and I'm talking about collectively, not individually, but there really hasn't been a public discussion on cutting spending. And maybe that's because we're so leveraged. Now, I don't believe that there's no fat. Of course there's fat to trim, but financially, the state is in it. And I think we're in it a lot deeper than we're being told publicly. What do you think? What say you? We have one more hour coming your way next. We're going to talk more about this plan to fund our roads and highways by taking more money from you and referring a sales tax that's supposed to expire to you as well.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
That teaches us how to regain control of our country. And I can't say how important that is. That is, we all have to learn that. We have to learn that.
We're talking with Tim Loggins with the Patriots Fact 746. Let's talk about Stand Your Ground. Let's talk about Aaron Pilkington's bill. I tell you, that was one of the best parts of that meeting, Tim, is when you were just kind of going over all of the moving pieces right now in terms of legislation, that's either supported or legislation that needs to be passed. You go over some scenarios specifically with this Stand Your Ground law. I don't see how anybody can argue with you on it.
Well, you say that, Paul, but the Arkansas Sheriff's Association met behind closed doors in opposition to it. Yeah. So you say, how can anyone oppose it? Well, we need to be asking our Sheriff's Association how they can oppose it.
Mm-hmm. Well, so what? Any news from them? Are they coming off at all from their stance?
No, I haven't spoken to them since the committee meeting where HR 1013 passed the Judiciary Committee, so I'm not sure if they're changing their stance or not. And quite honestly, Paul, it doesn't matter because they're making themselves irrelevant and they're showing themselves to be against the people. And if that's the stance they want to take, we can have that argument,
What is their argument against the Stand Your Ground? Now, tell us what this bill would do. Because, people don't understand that right now, if you're in public and you see something happening to someone else that's clearly wrong, and you step in and intervene, you could be charged with a crime because you have a duty to retreat.
Well, Paul, this is being called a Stand Your Ground law. I'm gonna set the language correctly because we have the wrong conversation too often. Nowhere in this bill does it say anything about stand your ground. That's define the terms. Currently in Arkansas law, it says that if you're in your home or on your cartilage, you have no duty to retreat. But you have a different standard if you're in public, if you're in your car, if you're walking down the sidewalk, if you're at the movies. If you can retreat in complete safety, you must do that and you must consider it. And if you don't, a prosecutor can come back and prosecute you, not based upon was the force reasonable, but based upon the fact that you didn't retreat. And that's very dangerous for citizens. Imagine if law enforcement had that standard. They couldn't do their jobs. So why do citizens have a standard at their house that's different from the one in public? So nowhere does it say stand your ground. That's important to say from the start. This is about giving us one standard. The standard is, are we committing murder or is the force we're using reasonable? And when you define it in those terms, Paul, it's hard to argue with.
Are you committing murder or was the force reasonable? Exactly. Now, let's talk about what are the sheriffs saying? They're saying that you don't need to make these changes because why?
Well, first and foremost, we got some folks that are saying that, hey, we got a pretty good law now. And they're correct. We have a pretty good law now. And my argument is that pretty good isn't good enough. But they're saying, hey, it's pretty good, why change it? Well, because we can make it better. Some of the arguments I've heard is, that undercover officers might get killed now. Well, that makes no sense to me because murder is still murder. And if an undercover officer is making an unlawful arrest and hasn't identified himself, you know what I'm saying? That there's no threat to an officer, undercover or not. Another argument they made, well, what if someone is getting their car repossessed and a neighbor runs out there and shoots the record guy? Well, that's still murder.
Exactly right.
Their arguments are making no sense.
That would be murder. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, you're right. So it really is just kind of irrational fears in a sense. Now, one of the things that they've said is, well, prosecutor could charge you, because your scenario is always, Tim, okay, I'm in Walmart. I see a woman being dragged to a van screaming, help, help. I take action. And then, of course, I'm charged. They're saying, well, the prosecutor never would charge you. And so we're supposed to rely on today's prosecutors and future prosecutors, according to that argument.
My answer to that, Paul, is why in the world would there even be a possibility that I could be prosecuted based upon my location? That makes no sense. It has nothing to do with the force.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. This is hour number 2, and it's Monday. Happy Monday to everybody out there. I hope that you guys have a great week. I hope it's a prosperous one, and I really appreciate you starting the beginning of your week with us here at the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We have a great rest of the hour for you. We'll be checking in with State Representative Jack Ladyman. I'd like to talk to him a little bit about what's going on with the Public Health Committee, generally speaking. They're in the middle, or this will be the beginning of the scope, or the beginning of the third week of scope of practice week, where they're trying to deregulate some of these professions and allow these professions to practice within the scope of their training, right? But, of course, we have others, the protectionist industry, people that claim things that are about public safety when they're really not. Now, if it is legitimately about public safety, okay. But, man, I tell you, I was watching I was in Scope Week, I guess, on Thursday, and it was incredible. I was watching the members of the Medical Society text members on the committee. It was pretty funny. Yeah, I was watching that. I could see a text go through it, and I could see a legislator look at their phone. I was even hearing. See, you never know where the press is going to be standing right next to you. I was even hearing the Medical Society telling other people there who were friendly with the Medical Society to text legislators which motions they need to make. Like, see if they'll make a motion for immediate consideration, because they didn't want to hear anything else. They were ready. That's what I observed. Thought that was interesting. Not that texting a legislator on a committee is necessarily a bad thing, but texting them which motions they need to make, I feel like that's a little bit over the line. But hey, lobbyists are lobbyists. You know what I mean? They're lobbyists for a reason. Telephone number 870-275-9799. The Medical Society is extremely powerful. They have an extreme, the Medical Society hires lobbying firms, or a lobbying firm, and that's interesting. Well, I tell you what else is interesting. And this is a component here that I think needs to be explored. You see, a lot of the lobbying firms that are out there, they also run different legislators' campaigns. So you become friendly with the legislator by helping them get elected, right? And that's just the electoral arm. But then the same people that run campaigns also have clients like the Medical Society and others. And so now you have a much easier time, just because everybody is relational and everybody makes friends, and then you don't want to say no to your friend. Well, then, the guy who runs my campaign, he's my friend, and he's now telling me, because he reps the Medical Society. I'm telling you, this is just a hypothetical that could be going on. Just a hypothetical.
Just throwing that out there. That's another way these things work. You know what I'm saying? Because see, when I look at the Public Health Committee, I'm amazed at how many of the scope of practice bills have such an uphill battle. And the Medical Society goes down at the end of the table, and they just kill bill after bill after bill. And I'm just wondering why. The party of deregulation, the party of right to work, the party of more choices means more freedom and lower prices for consumers. That party that controls things down in Little Rock is having a really hard time getting out of the House Public Health Committee. And you just, and I even on Friday, I wasn't here. Joe, did you play State Representative Josh Miller? Okay, so I did sit down last Thursday with State Representative Josh Miller, who's a member of that committee, and I did ask him, I posed the question to him in that interview, is it consistent, essentially, if you are for a government involvement in healthcare and government control of healthcare and government providing, for example, Medicaid expansion, if you are for that, is it any surprise that you're against deregulation, getting government out of the way, for this small profession or for this small profession or for this small? And I personally don't think it is. I think it's very consistent. I think that's why you're having such a hard time. All right, let's move on now because I'm wasting time at this point. This is the Arkansas Democrat Gazette headline: House votes loom for 2 road measures, by Michael Wickline, posted this morning at 3:08 a.m., and it has to deal with what the House is supposedly going to do this afternoon. The House is expected to vote today on different parts of Governor Asa Hutchinson's plan to raise more state highway money. Wickline writes the bill that would raise $95 million a year and a proposed constitutional amendment that would ask voters in 2020 to approve another $205 million a year. That's what we're dealing with here. And I have to say, the one that would raise $95 million a year is a new tax on gas and diesel at the wholesale level. But is it really a new tax when we're already paying a separate tax at the pump? Well, I mean, I said the word separate, so I guess I answered my question. But it certainly is. Well, we talked about last hour how this may be an effort, and I think it is an effort, to get around the spirit of the Constitution, whereas in Arkansas, in order to raise a tax, if it's an existing tax, you have to have 75% of the vote in order to lower or raise it, if it's an existing tax. So in order to mess with the rate at all. If it's a brand new tax, you only need 51% of each chamber. So interesting, right? So the second part of the governor's highway plan is the constitutional, is referring to the people a constitutional amendment to extend the half-cent sales tax that's set to go away. So to me, it's a new vote on a new tax, because right now in the statute, it's going to go away. So they're going to have a new vote on a new tax. They're going to say it's not a new tax because we're already paying it. But the people of Arkansas voted for this tax increase in 2012 with the understanding that it would go away. Go to the Facebook post of State Representative Julie Mayberry, who's a Republican and who has a competing bill that would not raise our taxes. And this is what she said on, I guess, the 2nd of March. She said a cap, quote, a cap, a 10-year construction program, a temporary tax, are all terms used to describe a sales tax approved in 2012. Those definitions all mean it will end in 2023. On Monday, the Arkansas House of Representatives will vote on HJR 1018, which will put the issue back on the ballot to continue the sales tax permanently. This is why State Representative Andy Mayberry, her husband, voted against the idea in 2011.
to get a tax passed, some will say it's temporary, but then when it comes close to ending, some start saying, well, it's not a new tax. You are currently paying it. Let's keep it going. Plus, I know for a fact, she writes, the sponsor of that temporary half-cent sales tax in 2011 meant what he said and wants us to keep his promise. He wants the tax to end. I plan to vote against this continuance of this tax. These are photos from years ago indicating what was said in 2012 and 2013, plus a portion of an article from this week. Now, let's look at this. So here was the propaganda. I'm sorry. Go ahead and click on the photo, Joe. Here's what it was. Connecting Arkansas program, right? Connects Arkansas, increases capacity, a 10-year revenue cap. Oh, okay, so that means it's temporary, right? Nope, because you can't bind future legislatures. Next photo. Blue Ribbon Committee recommendations. A 3-course meal, a 4-course meal. Okay, reissue, let's see, right there, number 3. Issue number 1 to fund a 10-year construction program. Okay. All right, and the next photo. Here we go. This is from ArkansasEngineers.com. 3 of the 4 proposed statewide measures passed during the interview following the November meeting. The Arkansas Highway Commission Chairman, Madison Murphy, said the way the road program is structured and the way it was explained to the voters helped lead to its passage. The tax is temporary and targeted, with all the money going to roads and all of it being spent on private contractors rather than hiring state employees. Quote, I think it's illustrative of the fact that if you have a temporary tax for specific projects the people believe are important and you can clearly articulate the needs, where the money is going, I think people get it. This is how it was sold to us. And now they're going to refer it to us to make sure it doesn't go away. This is what fuels the skepticism of people in government. You want to know why it feels like it's us versus them? If you're a politician, why does everybody got to talk about me? Well, it's stuff like this that is objectively betraying the trust of Arkansans. It is what fuels anti-government sentiment across the board, because it is it's a tinge, at least a tinge, dishonest. Okay. And people don't like to be lied to, or they don't like to be told one thing, assured one thing, and have that same government, yes, it's a different legislature, but it's the same government, come back and tell them, we were just joking about a sunset clause. It's just not a good idea, folks. It simply isn't a good idea. Here is State Representative Jonathan Barnett from 2011 on the House floor. Jonathan Barnett does not support this. Yeah, go to the next. Go to the next one. Yeah. No. I'm sorry. Back up. Let me go to the next one. I'm on the wrong thing here. Where did it go? Here it is. Yeah. So if you go to the next page there, this is a quote from the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Former Representative Jonathan Barnett, Republican from Siloam Springs, who in 2011 sponsored the original measure to refer the half-cent sales tax for highways to voters in 2012, said he opposes making the tax permanent. Quote, that wasn't the original commitment. He said in a telephone interview he did not speak at the committee meeting. Quote, I promised the citizens of Arkansas it would have a sunset on it, it would be a 10-year sales tax, and it would come off. So kudos to State Representative Barnett for being like, yeah, I'll come out and publicly say that this is wrong because this is not what we promised the people we would do. Okay, so let's actually listen to what State Representative Barnett said. We have a YouTube video here from 2011. This is what he said in trying to convince the people to vote for this thing.
I come today to this body to again talk about and present House Joint Resolution 1001. This has been a highly debated bill this session. I know a lot of you all have had a lot of discussion on this, and I've talked to, I think, every member that's present in the body myself concerning this House Joint Resolution. This is a resolution, as you all well know, that refers to the people an opportunity to have a half-cent general sales tax increase to go toward a 10-year highway bond program. All the provisions contingent on this approval of the ballot question are by the voters at the November 2012 general election. And as I said, it is a temporary 0.5% general sales tax increase. The temporary is the reason why we call it temporary, because it does have a sunset clause.
All right, stop.
This
So there's a lot of people, a lot of legislators who understand how difficult it is to increase taxes on a population. One of the reasons they voted for this in the first place in 2011 to put it on the ballot in 2012 was because it was temporary. They could go back to their districts and they could say, this is for specific projects. Here they are. This is the roads that are going to be built, and it's going to come off after 10 years. Now, if you were a conservative back then, and you were somebody probably said, there's no way that tax is ever going to decrease. Somebody probably said that. And guess what? They apparently are going to be proven right. Because Governor Asa Hutchinson, his plan is to refer this back to you to make sure are you sure you want this to sunset? Are you sure? Because it's part of his highway plan. Folks, the state of Arkansas apparently is in very bad shape financially. If you take anything from all of this, look, I am a huge fan of the governor's income tax cut that he just passed of $95 million. Right? Over 2 years, we're bringing that rate from 6.9% down to 5.9%. That's great. I'm a fan of that. That's a no-brainer, right? It's going to cost the government $95 million, they say. Well, the increase in your gas tax on the diesel and the regular gasoline at the wholesale level, that's going to raise $95 million. You might ask the question, why did we cut the tax at all if we're just going to raise it here or lower it here and then raise it here? But then you come back around and you flank the taxpayer with this other proposal. And that's what this is. We are being surrounded. If you don't think Republicans who want to increase taxes don't look at some sort of well, how is this best going to be received? I mean, this is what they're doing, We are in really bad shape financially, and there's no one that's really saying this. How else do we interpret it, though? If you really look at the numbers, if you look at the commitments that we are told we have to spend here, and here's the thing: we are overspending year in, year out. We're spending more each year. The government is getting more money from us already. They're already getting more revenue from us year in and year out just because of a good economy. But then they want more taxes from us as well. I know hindsight is 20/20, but I have to say it. If we'd have been taking money for highways at a general revenue for the last 4 years, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in today, number one. Number two, if we would have not increased spending year over year over year over year, we'd have money for roads. This, unfortunately, is mismanagement. Now, the legislators who are Republicans who are going to vote for this plan, they do so, I believe, because they are, many of them, not all of them, but many of them do not believe there is anybody who's going to seriously consider cutting spending, and they look at the roads and they are convinced that the roads themselves, if they fall into a certain state of disrepair,
that they are beyond, that it's going to be even more expensive to fix them. Meaning you can't even fix the road, you got to tear it up and do it again. That is what they're saying, and some of them are just really at a state of construction triage, if you will, road construction triage, and they're just trying to figure, well, you know what, we got to take more money from the people to pay for the roads. As frustrating as it is, I'm telling you, that's an argument down there that is many people are that's what they're saying. We're going to take a break. I've gone way over. Back in a moment.
Identified himself. You know what I'm saying? That there's no threat to an officer, undercover or not. Another argument they made, well, what if someone is getting their car repossessed and a neighbor runs out there and shoots the record guy? Well, that's still murder. You know,
exactly right.
The arguments are making no sense.
That would be murder. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, you're right. So it really is just kind of irrational fears in a sense. Now, one of the things that they've said is, well, prosecutor could charge you, because your scenario is always, Tim, okay, I'm in Walmart. I see a woman being dragged to a van screaming, help, help. I take action, and then, of course, I'm charged. They're saying, well, the prosecutor never would charge you. And so we're supposed to rely on today's prosecutors and future prosecutors, according to that argument.
My answer to that, Paul, is why in the world would there even be a
Let's face it, times are tough for the Arkansas General Assembly. They're all waiting for the spotlight exposing public corruption to end, so they won't be under so much scrutiny. And during this time, what if you're a legislator and you need money? What if you're slapped with a huge expense? What if your check for consultant services is late this month? Or maybe you just need extra cash now until payday. When that happens, you can't wait. Hi, I'm Bobby Blackmail for the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank, your trusted source to over 135 lenders to get you short-term cash fast. Use the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank today, and you can have up to $12,500 cash in your checking account tomorrow. Dried-up bribes no longer coming from Medicaid entities? Handled. Extra cash until your hopeful acquittal? Done. And you'll be surprised at how easy it is to get extra cash. Just be an elected official and be comfortable with the status quo, and we'll connect you with a fellow legislator who is ready to loan. It's quick and easy. And don't worry if you can't make the payments, because the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank is designed to help you get through these tough economic times. There are other ways you can pay off your debt, like by voting the way the establishment wants, or by rewarding some with committee chairmanships. So forget about overdraft fees and the spirit of covetousness that sometimes overwhelms the best of lawmakers. Just remember, the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank for short-term cash between colleagues when you need it fast.
Some transactions have long-term consequences.
Paul Harrell, parody.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Kudos again to State Representative Julie Mayberry and the others who signed on to her piece of legislation. One of those was State Representative Josh Miller, as well as Clint Penzo and others. John Payton. I'm leaving some people off, I know, but it's just good to have at least there's a competing idea out there too. And this is actually the same plan that was attempted. If you go and you look, the idea, when you pay a sales tax on used vehicles, that doesn't go to fund roads. Not all of it. I don't know if any of it does, but I know, the sales tax that we pay on new and used vehicles should go to fund our roads. It's a great plan. It's not happening right now. That money's being spent somewhere else, right? So forget about cutting spending. I guess that's still cutting spending. You'd have, because it's being spent somewhere, right? Okay. So yeah, but just reallocate the money and figure out what you're going to do elsewhere. creativity, right? Or what? Necessity is the mother of invention, is what they say. I'm ready for I want people to get creative on how they can keep government the same size. How about that? And I'm compromised because I'd like it to shrink. But let's just keep it the same size, get creative. But I feel like our creative energies are being spent with trying to figure out new ways to tax me, and I don't like that.
Ability that I could be prosecuted based upon my location. That makes no sense. That has nothing to do with the force justified. Was it reasonable? Was I defending myself? Was I defending another person? So the standard in current law is unacceptable. And the fact that a prosecutor probably won't prosecute you just isn't good enough. Most deserve to know what the law is, what their rights are, when they can defend themselves and when they can't. The law needs to be clear. And right now it's not. I mean, can you imagine you're in a life and death situation and someone's threatening your life and you got to stop and do a threat assessment? Can I retreat or not? Wow, you're dead because you stopped to think about retreating. That makes no sense.
Yeah, that is interesting. That if you take the same scenario and you put it in your house or on your property, you're totally fine, not going to be prosecuted. But if that same scenario is in a public place, you could be prosecuted. That is interesting. That doesn't make any sense. That seems to be a contradiction.
Well, and I'm going to tell you what it is. It's an argument about do we want an armed society or not. You and I both know that murders occur in gun-free zones. That's where they happen, where folks are unarmed and unable to defend themselves. And so we're having this discussion based on a law that was written several years ago, and the thought process is changing now. Folks are coming, they're getting woke. I believe that's how they say it today. They're getting woke. People realize that, you know what, you can't carry a cop in your pocket. You are responsible for your safety, not law enforcement. And as people, awaken to this idea, then they start examining the laws, and the laws don't say what they think they say. So it's time to change the law.
I couldn't agree more. Really exciting stuff, really exciting times. We're talking with Tim Loggins of the Patriots of Act 746. And I want to remind everybody that if you want to become a member of this group, so they've already added 65 to the NEA chapter. The page itself is 17,000 strong. You just go to Facebook.com and you search for Patriots of Act 746, and then you're going to request to become a member of that Facebook group. And then you're going to have access to all kinds of information, all kinds of discussions and everything else about what your rights are, because the Patriots are on a mission to educate folks as to what your rights are here in the state. And right now, we're a constitutional carry state. You don't need a permit to carry a weapon open or concealed in the state of Arkansas, and that's what is. More and more people are figuring it out every day. I have people almost every time I do the segment, friends of mine that go listen every.
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, 870-275-9799. Hey, folks, welcome back to the program. We got State Representative Jack Ladyman on the line. He's a state representative for District 59. Jack, remind us geographically, where is that?
Well, good morning, Paul. Thanks for having me on this morning.
Yes, sir.
District 59 is primarily northeast Craighead County, includes north and west Jonesboro, Bono, Cache, out that way.
And I know you're in Little Rock right now, and the legislative day is going to kick off here pretty soon. I wanted to have you on, sir, because you're the chair of the powerful. A lot of people are interested in the Public Health Committee, and so you're the chairman of that. And you guys are now starting week number 3 of Scope Week, or the Scope Weeks, I guess. How's it going so far, in your opinion?
Well, Paul, I think it's going very well, and as you said, one of the busiest committees in the House, and it's quite different being being a chairman and of one of the committees that see a lot of the bills. Keeps me busy. I'll say that. But yeah, one of the things that we do in public health and labor, now it's labor and welfare is also rolled in there, so we see all of the ADQ, the labor, all those bills as well. But one of the things that we do is scope of practice, and of course that affects our doctors, our pharmacists, our nurses, and what they practice and what they're allowed to practice. So it is very important, and as you can imagine, there are a lot of people that are interested in those bills, and so we draw a crowd.
Oh, man.
A lot of people are here for that. As you know, you've been in the room.
I have standing room only, and man, a lot of white coats. It's like which flock of white coats is coming in. It's coming in today. Like, what's your medical profession? And you never really know. But yeah, to me, it's been interesting to watch. Do you think changing scope of practice, meaning expanding what medical professionals can do, is that something that's pretty difficult from your point of view? Have you seen it? It's a hard thing to get the committee on board with changing things.
It's very difficult, Paul. And those bills, as you know, you've been in there, they've been vetted really, really well. And we've already had three, maybe four votes that have been 10-10. And so that's how that committee is split.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that's a good thing because we've got a lot of medical folks on that board. We've got people like me that have been involved in labor. We've got small business owners on there. So we've got a good mix, and we really do look at those bills. Now, one of the things that we talk about a lot is that, I'm a labor, an engineer, and I'm vetting doctors' scopes. And, people say, well, are you able to do that? But we need the views of different groups of people with different backgrounds. Because here's the bottom line, Paul. What these scope of practice bills basically do is they talk about, what can nurses do? Can nurses do more, which in turn would cost less and would increase access in rural areas of Arkansas? Can they effectively and safely do more? Can pharmacists do more? Can anesthesiologists, nurses do more? If they can, if they are fully capable, trained, and able to do that and provide quality service, then that will reduce costs for medical treatment, and it will give people in rural counties more access to that. So that's the goal. But it's difficult. It's very difficult.
And you would say, Jack, you're generally, as a Republican, you're on board with that goal, right?
I am. But the line, where do you draw the line, and how do you vet that? You want to make sure. If APRN can treat people out in rural South Arkansas without people driving all the way to Little Rock or some bigger city, then it's going to be less cost for those folks, and they're going to get treatment where in other cases they may not get that treatment. They may not have the resources to even get there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one side. The other side is that you don't want people to get inadequate treatment that might cause them harm.
Yeah.
So where do you draw the line? That's the debate.
Yeah.
Every single bill.
Yeah, I agree that is what y'all are debating there. I can definitely see that. I'm more of a I don't want to say pro-choice because that's going to be totally misconstrued. I want more choice out there for the consumer, and I want people to be able to volunteer. I don't want anyone, let's say, forced to go see an advanced practice nurse if they don't want to go see one. Yeah, but I would like, and I think generally this is what the deregulation side is for.
Well, that's a good point, Paul. You make a good point there because you still have the choice. If we pass these bills, people still have the choice to go to the higher level training, physician.
Mm-hmm.
They still have that, and we want to make sure that people understand that we're not forcing them to go to a nurse.
Yeah.
You know.
And of course, this particular bill, it failed. It was one of this nurse practitioner bill that would have expanded the scope. From what I understand, Jack, this would have been something that would have allowed nurse practitioners to do what other states, and I think it had something to do with an agreement, a contract or something with
collaborative
agreement.
Collaborative agreement. Yeah. I don't want to get too far in the weeds on this, but what it is now, nurses in Arkansas, they're required to have a collaborative agreement with the doctor, and of course they have to pay for that. And the doctor gives oversight to those nurses that are working maybe out in a clinic by themselves out in Bono. Actually, we have one in Bono like that. And the doctor provides oversight. Well, that's a cost. So the nurses have to pass that cost on. So it increases the cost to folks. So if we can not require that collaborative agreement, a contract basically, then those nurses can still get information and call doctors and collaborate with other professionals, but they're not saddled with that cost.
And and that was one of the bills that did fail last week, and it was a 10-10 tie. You need 11 votes to get out, and it was a 10-10, right?
Yeah, right.
Gosh.
The other one, the optometrist bill is another good example. That was a 10-10. One person didn't vote, but I think it was 10-10. But the same thing, the optometrists have a certain level of training. The ophthalmologist has a higher level of training, more years of practice. The question is, can these optometrists do some of the things, the minor things like minor laser, minor surgery, and can they do that effectively? If they can provide that service at a lower cost and more, in more areas of the state. They're in 65 counties. The ophthalmologists are only in, 18 or something like that.
Yeah.
So they're a lot more available.
Wow. Well, and I was there that day, and you had horror stories, Jack, of one time an optometrist messed up, and this woman is now down in Louisiana, optometrist in Louisiana, and this woman is now blind, and that they really just it's been, I'll be honest, State Representative Jack Ladyman, it's been frustrating to see how hard it is to allow professionals who go to school and are trained and are allowed to do certain procedures in other states. For decades, Oklahoma's been allowing optometrists to do the specific procedures, that you were referencing, and Arkansas is just like, no, can't do it, and they claim it's about public safety, but I'm not so sure it is about public safety. I think it's more about control. But that's just my opinion.
You're right, Paul, and that's our job. We signed up for this, and that's what we have to vet these bills, and so you have to ferret out what the facts are. I'm not saying these things that they're telling us are not true; they're true. But were they caused by the optometrist, or there are things in the medical community that happen, unfortunately, at all levels of treatment.
Yes.
So what is actually relevant here and what is not, and that's our job when we're on that committee, and we have to pay attention. We have to listen because we want to protect our people, but we also want them to get treatment, and we want them to get treatment that they can afford.
Yeah.
And it's a tough job.
It is, and in the context of, and I think this is an objective fact. I honestly, what I'm about to say is, I don't think it can be disputed. I'm sure somebody on the left would. The more government has gotten involved in our health care at any level, the more expensive it's gotten. And I think certainly there's an indirect link. I think it's a direct link. And so, on the flip side of that, if we're talking about getting government, getting the regulatory, the regulations out of the way, I think the price is going to go down, and that's the argument that's being made with a lot of these bills. If you give people more choice, and there's more people that are able to provide that service in a free market, the price is lowered, and that's good for it's good for the people. I don't know if it's good if you're
No, I agree. I agree with you, Paul, and I think that's true not just in the medical community, but anything. If you talk about, I've dealt with ADQ a lot, and the same thing there. The more regulation you have, the higher the cost is to small businesses or any business.
That's true anywhere. But we also are, on the other flip side, we've got to protect our people. And I'll just throw it out here now, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to run this bill, but I have a bill that I may file today, the hepatitis A issue that we've had in northeast Arkansas and in western Arkansas a little bit. I'm concerned about people working in restaurants that might have that disease and pass that on to folks that go in there just to eat a meal. So I have a bill that I'm looking at where if we have a stressed county where you've had a lot of these cases, we may require restaurant workers to get the hepatitis A shot. Now, that's new regulation, right? And I don't like that. Generally, it will be paid for by insurance that these companies, restaurants already have, so it won't be an extra cost on the people. But, you got to protect people going in there to eat. And Kentucky's already done this.
Well, so, you know, what's interesting is the rest of the state that's listening right now, you guys might not know about this, Jack, but yeah, it seems like every month there's another restaurant where there's some hepatitis outbreak, and they're urging people to go get vaccinated. If you ate at restaurant A from this date to this date, then you need to get vaccinated because first of all, the cause of this, Jack, is, from what I can tell, is that we have a drug problem. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have a source that says that there's that needle drugs, that doing drugs via needle are back in a big way because of the opioid crisis, and the crackdown on prescribing opioids has got people turning back to the real thing instead of the synthetic. Have you heard that at all, Jack?
I have. I've heard that that's the biggest cause, the needles, and people using other needles and passing that around, and I've heard that is the biggest cause of that outbreak. And Paul, it's almost an epidemic. I mean, I've got data on that I'll share with the committee if I run this bill or when I run it. And, there's over 380 cases in the 5 or 6 counties up there in northeast Arkansas. And it's not just us. They've had some in Fort Smith. Over in Kentucky, close to us, what is that county? Battered County, I believe it is. They actually passed a county ordinance that required that. And I think you're right. I think it is related to the drug problem that we have. That may not be 100% of it, but, we have to protect the public. And, I think this is a good example of you may have to add regulations, if it's necessary, if it's required. We should always push back on that, and I always try to do that and not add additional requirements for anybody or taxes or any of that stuff, because we don't want to do that. But, that's why I didn't sign a commitment to not raise taxes, because there may be cases where you have to.
Let's talk about that, Jack.
I was hoping we wouldn't get into that, Paul.
I bet you were. So we've already talked, off the air. I unless something's changed, you are on board with the governor's highway plan that includes taxing a new tax on the gas and diesel at the wholesale level. Tell us about that, Jack. Why are you supportive of it?
Paul, I don't hide. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to tell people. And as you probably know, this is my 3rd term. I've never voted for a tax increase since I've been here, and I don't want to. But there are things that are needed. Our highway system, you've talked about this on your program a number of times. It is in bad shape. We have kicked the can down the road. I hate to use a term that's been used over and over, but that's exactly what we've done. And we have to have good infrastructure. I serve on this committee representing Arkansas at the national level on infrastructure and energy. And, we have got to have good transportation systems or we're going to be left behind. We've got to have it. I don't like new taxes. I wish we could pay for it out of reductions and, savings and that sort of thing. And we've done some of that. But it is to a point to where, because these things take a long time, we have got to move our highway program forward. And I believe it's time that we have to do that. Now, Julie Mayberry has a bill. Dan Douglas has a bill. Johnny Rye had a bill. Other ways to do this. And I was very interested in those bills. I think we still should look at those things and try to do do the things that are in those bills that we can do to reduce taxes.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, we have got to get our highways. We got to get that program started.
Let me ask
Paul,
you this.
I'll give you.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, let me just ask you
I was
this.
going to give you a couple examples of things that we can't get done that we really need to do. We need Highway 67 4 lanes up to Missouri. We need that for our area of the state. That is never going to happen unless they get more money. That would bring good economic growth to our area of the state. We're a growing area, and we need a road from Fayetteville to Jonesboro. We need a 4-lane road. That would be a boom for our economy to connect those parts of the state, and to have a highway going from Houston, Texas, all the way to Detroit, right through the middle of our area of the state. Those would bring, economic growth, tremendous economic growth to our area. We're not going to get that unless we have good highways, and we have to start now.
So I understand the argument that there is an urgency there, and you say kick the can down the road. I agree with that, but I say the can that's been kicked is that we refuse to reprioritize what a majority of our Kansans agree on, and that's funding our roads through finding the savings or reducing spending elsewhere. So my question, Jack, is I understand your reasoning. I respectfully disagree with supporting the increase in tax, but in your opinion, would it be possible to pay for this without raising taxes, but is there just not really a willingness to have that kind of conversation and seriously enact some real restraints on spending so that it can go towards roads?
Well, Paul, let me say, I think we have to keep the debate going, and I think there definitely are ways that we can cut costs, and we've looked at that. There's been highway bills around the last 2 sessions, and I voted against them because I didn't feel like we had reduced all the costs that we can, and I think there's still other things that we can do, but it's kind of a timing issue. And one of the reasons that I'm voting for it this time is the last 2 sessions, I told the governor and other folks that I cannot vote for that bill because we're not taking money from other sources and putting it on highways that should be there, like sales tax on cars, sales tax on car parts, and those kind of things. And the governor's office and other folks fought that because they didn't want to move general funds over to the highway department.
Right.
Well, they relented on that, so they are now taking general funds as part of this plan, and it will go to highways. Now, granted, it's not as much as I wanted, not as much as a lot of folks wanted, but they did compromise. And when they did that, then I can vote for it.
Do people think it's a foot
more?
Do people think it's a foot in the door? Like, okay, he's allowing general revenue, and from there it can maybe increase in the future. Is that part of the rationale?
Yes, yes, and that's big. That's big because that just to get people to come around. And Paul, this is compromise, and that's what we got to have. We have got to have compromise in our state government to move it forward. And it might be a small compromise that you can work on later to increase. And, I think I understand that. I think the governor understands that. But we have to come to the table and we have to compromise. And we make progress, and then we start on the next level, and we start discussing that compromise there. The other side of that is that we need to continue to work to reduce the size of government, to reduce the cost of government. And, we're doing some things that do that, but it's not readily evident. The 3 income tax reductions that we've done over the past, third one this session, that's a big deal. That gets our tax system more in line with states around us. And I know a lot of this is moving taxes from one group to another.
A shell game,
but
kind of.
Yeah, it is. A lot of it is. But, we have to get in line with states around us. My deal is, you give a guy a good job, that solves a lot of these other issues. And to do that, we have to be competitive with other states, and that's what we're working on. And we make small progress, but getting our income tax, in line is one thing. We still have a high sales tax. Our gasoline tax is going to be high. We have to work on getting that down. I think we should look at Julie Mayberry's bill and some of the others and say, okay, can we do some of these things that Julie and others are recommending, and can we drop that tax in the future? But we've got to get the ball started to roll on our road.
We're running out of time. I like the pun you used, the roll pun. We're talking with State Representative Jack Ladyman. Real quick, Jack, the other part of the plan, referring a half-cent sales tax back to the people that's set to expire. Where do you fall on that one?
Well, Paul, as you know, I don't like it. I mean, I really don't like it. But in order to do what we've got to do, we've got to have a certain amount of funds, and that's the only way that's on the table right now to get it. And I think what we should do in the future is to look at, can we roll this back? Can we come up with reductions in government, roll this back? And real quick, I know you're running out of time, but, the transformation bill, a lot of people talk about that. Well, that's just window dressing. But let me tell you, that's going to save us a lot of money if we do it right, and I think we will. And so we're going to see savings that we can use to maybe reduce another tax. I think income tax, we're good. We've got to look at our sales tax, and our other taxes and see if we can reduce them.
State Representative Jack Ladyman, I appreciate you coming on the program and talking to us this morning, sir.
Thank you, Paul.
All righty. I want to remind everybody that the Arkansas share of Medicaid expansion was originally estimated to be this year $50 million, and instead our share is $138 million. That is the main reason why these plans are coming to take more of your money. We're going to take a break. Back in just a moment.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed roller lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com.
Hey guys, don't mind me as I...
Every day, they just listen every now and then. Some friends they are. They'll be like, wait a second, we don't need a permit to carry? And I'm like, yeah, you don't need a permit to carry.
Well, and that's absolutely right, Paul. And, this has been a long battle getting folks educated. This has been a law since 2013. We're still finding folks in authority positions that are hesitant to recognize this is what the law says, even though we've got the TAP decision that made it case law. We've got folks in BLR, at Bureau of Legislative Research that are resistant to what the law says. Wait a minute, maybe that's not what the law says. The lawmakers go to write laws, and BLR is telling them, oh, you can't say that. So this is that's what it says. No permits required in Arkansas. That's the law.
This is great.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio.
We don't have a lot of time.
Harrell.
So some genius out there decided to compare the different versions of the Bible with Star Wars characters. Okay, we're going to start with the one that's described very technical and rigid, but mostly right-on, but awkward. That would be the NASB, and they compare that to C-3PO.
It's pretty spot on.
Then we have the English Standard Version, which is my version of choice.
Mine too.
It's compared to Yoda. Not wordy, but worded backwards at times. It's mostly right, but worded odd in certain places.
That's what happens when you translate from Greek and Hebrew when things are backwards.
Speaking of Greek and Hebrew, the Hebrew and the Greek is Chewbacca. Can't understand either without an education or a translator. And the Message Bible, which the Message version is
which is not a Bible translation.
Is Jar Jar Binks kind of out there? You know what it's saying, but you wouldn't rely on it for something serious. That's great. Oh man, hey, thanks for spending time with us this morning. It goes on. There are more. We're out of time for this morning on Conduit News. We'll see you here tomorrow. Check out the podcast and the video archives over at conduitnews.com.